You think you know me.
Today on Security VIP, we feature the CEO at BadgePass, Lindsay Martin-Nez. Get ready for nothing but the truth.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Security VIP podcast, your home for nothing but the truth. As always, I'm your host, Taylor May. And on today's episode, we are featuring, and I quote, the misfits of the identification and security industry. That's right. It's a company called BadgePass out of Mississippi, the good old South. Obviously, I love speaking with people here in the South because we're different, we're better, Southern comfort. But I am featuring the lovely CEO, Mrs. Lindsay Martin-Nez. So, Lindsay, welcome to Security VIP, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I know our schedules. We had sick kiddos. You've been obviously flexible. I really appreciate you, spending some time when I was trying to coordinate things. But I understand. When you got sick kids around this time of the year, we've got to adjust, right?
Yeah, kids gotta come first. You gotta balance that somehow.
Exactly. So, Lindsay, I'm new to BadgePass. I did some research late last night. I was telling my wife, I got to do my homework on BadgePass real quick. But I've heard your name, I feel like constantly in the security industry. And I want to talk about like your background and everything like that. But for my listeners, kind of fill me in on who you are, and then we'll kind of pivot to the company and the mission for this year.
Sure. So I'm currently the CEO of BadgePass, but I've spent my whole career actually at BadgePass. So I moved to Mississippi from Buffalo, New York, back when I finished college and started my career as a channel sales rep here. So really what I was responsible for was working with our channel partners and educating them on our product and helping them have success with it. And as BadgePass continued to grow, I was afforded the opportunity to do the same within the company. And 2 years ago, 2 Januaries ago, I moved into the CEO position. So it's been a fun ride. I've been here for 15 years. But yeah, I would say that I've probably gotten a lot more vocal in the security industry, especially over the last couple of years. And my name seems to appear a lot more. I typically have a lot to say. So I guess that's probably why you've heard it now.
No, it's a great thing, and I've talked about this for years on my podcast. I started this, 5 years ago in May, coming up on that anniversary. And when I entered the industry over a decade ago, very, very male saturated, a lot of male predominant voices, and that's not a horrible thing. But like my wife worked at the construction industry, another male saturated industry, and I always told myself, why isn't there like females in these executive leadership roles? Obviously, in marketing, HR, you see typical females in those roles, but why isn't a female in like a CRO role, a COO role, a CEO role? So that's my advice, Lindsay. Like, what would be the recommendation from you as an executive leader of the company? Like, you started out in sales, so I've been in sales roles my whole life in the industry. But like, what's a recommendation to be in a leadership role as a female in this industry, looking outside in, and like, what would you like recommend, like, to be vocal, or what else there is important to reach that position?
Yeah, that's a good question. You're right. And honestly, 15 years ago, it was really bad. Like the security industry was aggressively male dominated. I remember walking into like ISC West and being very intimidated by how many men there were in suits. And I was like, what am I doing here? But you kind of just adapt and get used to it. I grew up playing golf, and I played on the boys golf team in high school. So I feel like I like grew up with the guys, and therefore it wasn't that much of a shift for me to like shift to an industry where it was pretty much all guys too.
Right.
And I don't know that that's true for all females. And so I think that depending on your background or your history and how you grew up, like that can be super intimidating to be around a room of, really, especially when you're a young female. It's not a young industry either. Now, I think that it's changing, and I'm definitely encouraged by how many more young people we've had, how many females we've had, how much more diversity we have in the industry now. But for me, it was always, I'm a pretty outspoken person, and I was fortunate to be that way early in my career. But I always encourage females to like go to things, put yourself at the table, like go to meetings, sit in on things, learn as much as you can, and be present and be excited to take on new challenges. And I think the more that you're in it and the more you're out there and being vocal and sharing your opinions and getting new ideas, and just learning, you're afforded more opportunities as a result. And I think the industry is very accepting of females. I just think that people don't think that it's like sexy. I don't think there's a lot of females who are like, man, you know what I'm dying to do is go work in the security industry. And so once you're in it, you get the bug. Everybody says this about the industry and you love it and it's hard to leave, but it's difficult to attract females. And when you don't see a lot of people like you in the industry, I'm sure that for a lot of females, it's like, well, why would I get into that?
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. Today, the industry is a lot more receptive to women in leadership roles and just being in the industry. And what's not sexy about running cable and installing an IP camera, or hooking
I
up
don't
a
know. You
panel?
tell me.
But no, that's right. I try to have more female advocates on my podcast because obviously I get tired of talking to dudes a lot. I talk to a lot of dudes, and it's always good to get a fresh perspective on the podcast. But let's pivot to BadgePass, Lindsay. You've been in the CEO role for a couple of years now, which is awesome. But 16 years is a long time to be with one company. We've always seen, people typically stay 2 to 3 years with Jump. Obviously, like the Axis, the Hanwhas, the Milestones, the Genetechs. Those are really well-known names. People stay there for a while, but why are you staying there? So, like, why do you love the company? But then also tell us what BadgePass is and the value proposition.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that about people staying a couple of years. I always joke that it's the same people in the security industry. They just have different logos on their shirts every time you see them at a new event. But we've been really fortunate. I'm actually not even that tenured at our company compared to some other people. We just celebrated one of our employees' 30th anniversaries in December. We got another one coming next year that's going to hit 30 years. So we've got a lot of people who've been here for a long time. And to me, it was like as soon as I got on board, I just felt like I was a part of something bigger than myself, and something about the team and the environment and this push to like build something really cool was exciting to me. And I think that's why we have so many people like me who have been here for a long time and want to continue to see our vision for what BadgePass could be and will be come to life.
That's awesome. I mean, when I look at like I did again when I was looking at the company last night, I saw like words that just really resonate with me because I don't know if you know about my background. Obviously, I'm a has-been football player at Oklahoma State, but I walked on, and like as a walk-on, you've got to be gritty and scrappy. So I see scrappy, I see passion, I see driven. I love those values because that's exactly what I had to do when I walked on at OSU. So is that part of it too, Lindsay? Like when you hire people for the company, we talk about attrition rates and retainment rates in the industry. I shit you not. I was with a casino yesterday in Oklahoma, and he had a 30% attrition rate, and part of that was because they just can't pay them. They weren't paying these employees enough. So, what is it about BadgePass that allows you to have these tenured employees that stay there for nearly 30 years?
Mm-hmm. So let's touch on the core values. I think that there's two things. Every time someone asks me this in an interview, and I love it when someone asks me, what's it take to be successful here? I say there's two main things. And the number one is passion. Like if you're not passionate about what we're doing and it doesn't get you excited, you won't succeed here long-term just because it'll be hard to be around a bunch of people who love what they do if you don't. But also it drives all of us to kind of do more and be more successful is our passion and enthusiasm. And then number two is scrappy. And so I always joke that scrappy is our politically correct, PR way of saying FITFO, which is one of my favorite phrases. So in the sales pit, which is where I came from, sales and marketing at BadgePass is how I grew up. But on the sales pit, which is kind of like where our sales team that works out of the office works out of, it says FITFO on the wall over the door, kind of like, at Notre Dame, like play like a champion today.
Yep.
So it says FITFO, which stands for figure it the F out. And so that's the less politically correct way of saying scrappy.
I love it.
But at the end of the day, when you're a small company, and I mean, you're a software company out of Mississippi in the security industry, it's not like there's a ton of us down here. And when you're competing against bigger names or large organizations, you've got to be scrappy. You've got to do as much as possible with, as few resources as you might have. And we've been fortunate to grow a lot while I've been here. But man, when I started here, we had, 20-ish employees. We were just out of Mississippi and we were totally different than we are today. And you just figure out how to do more with less. And I think that that's what drives a lot of our team members and a lot of our success.
No, I love it. I mean, it's like a David and Goliath story, It's like, how are you going to overcome the biggest hurdles with the biggest players in the market? And you're right. A lot of these companies that do come in the industry, you don't see a lot of them come from Mississippi. I mean,
Mhm.
how many other companies are in Mississippi? Number one, but number two, walk me through like the value proposition of BadgePass. I see a lot of different vertical markets on your page. I see obviously healthcare and higher ed and nonprofits and corporate, but I love when I see like Fortune 500 and some SLED, for markets, but where do you guys really, really fit in an organization? And maybe walk me through like the ICP and like the value proposition of why this is important to an end user to implement BadgePass.
Sure. So we're really focused on the badging aspect of what BadgePass does, and it's our goal to be the number one badge issuance platform
Mm.
that anybody uses who wants to issue or manage some type of credential, whether that's a physical badge or a virtual badge or some type of mobile credential down the line. That we want to be the hub or kind of like the central point to manage all that credential information. And in the security industry, the badge is kind of this overlooked afterthought. When you think about it from like a door access perspective, it's almost like a necessary evil to a lot of access control companies. Like, I need this, it's a utility to open a door. And we approach it totally differently. And we really work with our customers to put the badge first and say, hey, like, if you start with this, think of the foundation that you can then build upon. And once you're already in there with the badge and they're issuing it and they like the way that the process works, it's likely that they're going to continue to come to you, the provider, to keep growing and expanding on an already existing system. And it's much easier value proposition or sale even to get in with something small like a badging system and
Mm.
just own it and do it awesome, and then continue to grow and expand your footprint within that customer account from there. And so our biggest verticals, to your point, are we do excellent in education. K through 12 is my favorite vertical. I'm just passionate about it. But state and local governments, so really just SLED in general. Obviously, all those people wear and use badges and will continue to probably forever. Corporations and healthcare, I would say, are probably our other two. But really, anybody that issues and manages credentials in some capacity outside of the federal government, there's plenty of people that play there, and that's not really where our favorite place is to play.
I don't blame you. I don't like working with the public sector either. Well, so we talk about mobile a lot, Lindsay, in the industry. Obviously, you probably know Phil Capella of HID. He's a big mobile advocate.
I do.
How much are you seeing that in the verticals that you guys play in? And I think higher ed and K through 12, maybe not so much mobile, but maybe I'm wrong. But I mean, how much are you guys seeing as part of your business at BadgePass with mobile credentials being issued?
So higher ed, I think you're going to see a lot of it, and I think
Okay.
adoption will continue to increase there. If I was going to pick a vertical that did is doing the most mobile right now or wants to adopt it the most, it would probably be higher ed. But outside of that, in the markets that we're in, mobile adoption is difficult. Number one, those are a lot of places where people don't have company issued devices. They're using their own devices. They don't want to put something on their personal device, or they refuse to. Number two, the visual element of a photo ID is still important to them from a security perspective. And not even just security. We can touch on so many other reasons, like psychologically, that the badge is important to those facilities. But at the end of the day, they also don't have that much money. So, like, when you see mobile adoption, you're seeing it a lot right now, either in universities or in like Fortune 500, big enterprise accounts, new construction, where there isn't like existing infrastructure of hardware that has to be
Yeah,
compatible
makes sense.
with the
Yeah.
mobile credentials. And so that's fine. They typically have better budgets than some rural school district in BFE, Mississippi, right? So they have more money to spend on something like that. And it's important to them that they have the sexy new technology. Whereas a lot of your day-to-day customers, I would consider the majority, want a system that works, that they trust, that's reliable. And while mobile credentials might be cool, it might not be something that is on their immediate roadmap. It might be something that they want to plan for strategically 5 years from now or something like that.
Yeah, I spoke with David Sullivan, president of AMAC, and he hit on the same things. Obviously, number one, the cost factor with mobile is astronomical when you talk about an Amazon or an IBM where they've got thousands and thousands of employees. But he also hit on the compatibility issue with like the readers. Some of the readers are not updated,
Mm-hmm.
with mobile. It's another cost factor you got to weigh into. So, yeah, it's interesting you mentioned like higher ed and education because I think you're right because like obviously kids nowadays grew up with digital and mobile, so why not use your phone, for access and everything. So walk me through like the adoption phase of BadgePass with some of these markets. Are people just like adoption phase, but also like the cost factor, because I do want to hit on cost a little bit. And if you don't want to disclose it, that's fine. But I would love to understand like when an end user or an integrator comes to you, like walk me through the actual deployment. What does that look like? The cost factor, scalability, et cetera.
Yeah, so we'll focus on our cloud product. That's our newer product and the one that we're really pushing and we'll continue to evolve and be our flagship product, if you will, in the future. We have an on-prem solution as well that we've sold for years and have tons of success with, and that one's not going away. So if a customer is listening to this or a partner that sells that, like we're still
I do want
supporting
to talk
that
about
too.
that. That's my next question. I want to talk about cloud for a minute. Go ahead.
But our cloud badging application is really kind of what we're leading with, and multiple reasons. Number one, it's insanely easy to implement. So implementation of a cloud badging system is so simple because we do all the configuration in advance of anyone ever even showing up on site. So like your backend portal and system is up and running, ready to go. All your badges are loaded, your data can be all in there, you're ready to roll. And literally all you've got to do is hook a printer up to the network. And we actually custom developed a card printer that has, kind of like an onboard PC in there to allow us to directly communicate to the cloud. This sounds like this should be simple, that you could just communicate to any card printer. But what happens is it's like any printer. There's printer drivers and things that need to be installed locally to run and manage that device. And if you take away any local PC, you take away your ability to manage it locally. And so we basically had to we worked with two different manufacturers to support several different printer models that could communicate directly to the cloud. And what this means for a customer is you just plug it into the network and it communicates back to the software and it's up and running. And you take away the burden of any local installation, any local printer driver that you then have to manage. It's all managed via the software. And after that, it's just a subscription. So they can pay monthly or annually, and the device is supported. They can issue virtual badges as well as physical ones, and they're off and running.
So if I'm a sales rep at BadgePass, just because I like wearing the sales hat, I've worn the sales hat for years. I have flexibility to sell obviously the software on a SaaS model, RMR and ARR basis, but the printing and some of this hardware you guys offer, it's a hardware element too that I'm selling as well, in addition to
Yes.
the software.
Yep, as well as supplies. So consumables, credentials, the ribbons themselves. And I think a lot of integrators don't think about that in the access control world, how much recurring revenue, even outside of just the software there is in badging. We have support contracts on card printers. We have the consumables and the supplies that go along with printing and personalization of the badges. And all of that tends to recur because people don't just print a badge once, they print them all the time or annually. And if they follow our recommendations, they'll reprint badges every year and update with people's new photos. Because as great as my 15-year-old employee badge photo was, and as much as I would like to still look like Lindsay when she was 22, I don't. So it's important that my photo and my badge reflect that as well.
People still wear like their 20-year-old photo though, at these places.
I
It
know.
blows my mind.
We do not recommend this, just for clarity.
It's like I'm here to see John Smith. This looks like nothing like John Smith, like 20 years ago.
Or like people's LinkedIn photos that are really old, and then you meet them in person and you're like, this isn't what you look like at all.
Exactly. I do want to step back to the cloud versus on-prem because I talk about this often. I have a lot of cloud providers now on the podcast, but it was funny, Lindsay, like when I started the podcast, cloud was still naive, cloud was still misunderstood. People had concerns with the security of cloud. I would argue some people still have concerns with cloud, but when I speak with people that have cloud solutions, cloud SaaS solutions, everything you hit on is exactly correct. The scalability, the implementation, the updates, like Amazon updates like 100 times a day, and people don't even know that. And it's all hosted in AWS. Like it's crazy. But walk me through like any kind of hiccup you may have seen with cloud adoption with your cloud offering, because I do want to promote that, especially when I speak with Fortune 500 companies who are predominantly on-prem. Like casinos, for example. Casinos are very, very air-gapped, closed network environments. But a lot of my casino friends now are actually putting a lot of their retention of data and video inside the cloud now. So they have like a hybrid model. So I think walk me through like any kind of hiccups or challenges or misconceptions that people have with cloud and how that's settled and resolved with your offering.
Let's split it into two buckets because I would say there's end user and then there's partner. And I think that there are different challenges when it comes to cloud. And so from an end user perspective, a few years ago, it was a little bit more difficult. And I felt that we had to articulate some of the added value and benefits and like hidden costs in having an on-prem system so they could kind of see a side-by-side comparison of like, oh, well, now I don't have to manage these servers, or I don't have to have a team member on staff to manage these things, and updates will occur automatically, and my team's not going to be responsible for that. And you almost had to like explain that and help them like get there with you. And so it took a little bit longer. I don't feel that that's the case as much anymore. I mean, sure, some customers, yes, and every customer is different. So some of them are very tech savvy or have great IT guys, and some of them are like outsourced IT to, they have no one on staff. And their HR department's figuring it out or something like that. But now it's almost like so much is in the cloud and so much is a subscription that you don't really have to explain it as much. I have more people asking for, well, what's your cloud offering look like? Or how does your cloud offering differ? Even our customers who have our on-prem solution will contact us now and be like, what's the plan to migrate this to the cloud? And so I'm seeing more people proactively thinking about it. And a lot of it's just lack of resources. So their IT team's like, hey, I'm down 4 guys. Like, I only have so many people. I mean, who isn't short-staffed everywhere in the world right now? And so I've only got so many resources. I need to support as much as possible and make it as easy on my team as possible. And I know the cloud will make it easier for me. So how do we make a push to move to that? So I think that the times are changing and the cloud is easier in that regard. That's end users. Channel partners are different. And I think that we've still struggled to get some of our channel partners to be really excited about the cloud. I think that they get it. So this isn't saying that they don't understand it. And I think it's just difficult to turn that into a model then that works from a business perspective, and how you're used to invoicing and billing your customers, and how you're used to paying your sales reps. And you have to kind of build a business model that supports that. And make changes in your organization. The ones who are willing to do it have great success with it, of course. And they see the fruits of that year after year. But I'm not saying that it's super easy. It's just, you got to be willing to put in the work. So I think channel partners do struggle with that a little bit. And I think any manufacturer would say that.
Well, it's interesting you're bringing that up, and I speak about some manufacturers going direct to an end user versus the channel, and some of that is what you just hit on, just because the lack of innovation or catch up or education. Sometimes they're not, or sometimes they're stuck in their ways, and they don't feel like they want to do that. So I guess that's my question, Lindsay, is and I've got people have like gave me a hard time for this in the past, especially integrators, because I was like, you know what, I'm driving demand for you with the end user, and if the end user says I want to buy direct from the manufacturer, I mean, what is a manufacturer going to say? No, like, no, you can't buy direct. And I think that's been some of the issue with some of these legacy manufacturers, is like an Axis or a Hanwha or Milestone. I love those guys, but like, you've got a Fortune 500 end user that says, hey, I want direct pricing, I want direct product feedback, I want direct line of communication. It's like, oh, well, you got to work with your integrator. And maybe that's because you don't have the support from a manufacturer in certain areas of the country. I get that. But what do you feel like is a theme now with your go-to-market? Obviously, you go through a channel. I think that's kind of obvious. But have you had any end users come to you and say, hey, Lindsay, like, can we buy direct from the company? Can we work directly with you? Or you're like, no, you have to work through this regional integrator or this reseller?
Sure. This is actually a topic that I feel like I've talked about a lot recently, because I think that the relationship between manufacturer and partner is evolving and changing. And as manufacturers, it's our responsibility to like build the best relationship possible with our partners and have their backs.
Right.
But also as partners, like integrators and everything like that, it's your responsibility to build that good relationship, trusted relationship backwards. And there's too much like expectation of, hey, since you're my partner, you do stuff for me. And like, I don't think that that's how that relationship works. Like it should be a true partnership where you're working together to build relationships with customers. But end users, to your point, want to have relationships with manufacturers now. This isn't, 25 years ago when you didn't have all the resources immediately at your fingertips on your phone to learn anything you wanted about any product out there. Right. And so end users are smarter and more savvy and more aware of other offerings that are out there. And they want relationships with end users. I was at Securing New Ground in the fall, the SIA conference, and there was an end user panel, and they were all big organizations. And they were talking about, we're happy to work with an integrator, but we also want a relationship with the manufacturer. And I think the integrators who push against that will struggle, because as long as you trust your manufacturer and have a good relationship together and y'all have each other's backs, like that should be a good thing that they have a relationship with both. You can be the local presence there. The manufacturer can have your back on the back end and come in for conversations as needed or help you push the sale. And you just have to really foster and build that. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. But that's our primary goal, is to make sure that an end user feels like they're getting what they want. But importantly, our channel partners feel like they trust us and we have a good relationship and we have their back.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to knock on integrators by any means, or channel partners, because I do have a couple that I've worked with for years that are just great, and they've been able to evolve and adapt with AI and SaaS models and things like that. But you're right, I have met a couple that are like, "Hey, Taylor, if you want to work with this end user, you have to go through me because I've got the relationship." Well, it's like, dude, I can find that person on LinkedIn. I can reach out to them directly. I can go meet them face to face for lunch or whatever and have a meal. But I think some of that was some animosity with, and I hate saying this, but I'm going to say it, like the generation disconnect a little bit in the industry with like new innovation coming out with younger individuals and the legacy generation, which is not really adaptive sometimes. I'm not saying that anyone's like that on this podcast, but I'm just saying that I've had that a couple times in the industry. But I think it's a good, healthy balance, like you said, Lindsay, because you just said, like, end users want to have a direct relationship with the manufacturer, obviously, number one, for support. But, I think just having like a healthy two-way communication with the channel partner and the end user, and it should be a partnership, right? And I think some adapt that better than others,
And integrators, and we have really great ones. Like I think we're super lucky that I don't work with a lot of them that push back a lot or are real negative about stuff. But I know that there's tons in the industry who are in this legacy mindset of like, I own this customer because it's in my area. And like, how is that true? Like, how do you own this school because you are in that state? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Would it be my preference that if you're my partner, that you have the primary relationship and we're the secondary? Sure. But at the end of the day, like, what if you don't have a partner in a certain area or someone who can support it? Like, of course you want the customer to still purchase your product. And it's a little bit narrow-minded, in my opinion, to think that manufacturers wouldn't try to get their product in as many places as possible. I almost can't knock manufacturers for saying, well, if I have no other options here, like I will have to sell direct because they want their product out there. And honestly, it's good for integrators if the product that they sell and support is in more places, because that continues to drive demand and is good for the brand that they sell and represent. So it's got to work together in some way. And it is a mindset shift for sure. And you're not wrong. I think that some of it was old school legacy, how the industry thought about it. And we got to change and we got to do better.
Mic drop, nothing but the truth. That's why this podcast is called Nothing But the Truth. So that's going to be a great cut up, a great snippet when I do promote this episode. Lindsay, walk me through competition. I want to talk about competition. I'm sure you guys got competitors. Obviously, I would imagine you're probably heavy in Mississippi, or if not somewhere in the South where your market is. And maybe you're heavy up north or west coast. But walk me through like competitors that you're just like, you know what, we go against these people often. We've won some jobs, we've lost some jobs. Walk me through the losses, walk me through the wins, but maybe walk through the competitive landscape a little bit.
Sure. I would consider our heaviest presence in the Mid-South, is what I call it. That's not a real region, but everybody knows what I mean when I describe it that way. And some of it's that we're here. And to be totally transparent, we started as a systems integrator. So now everybody knows this about us, but like we used to sell other photo ID product. We used to sell other access control product. We were constantly struggling to make badging work better with other things that use the badge. And so this is all like back in the 90s and everything. And then the owner of our company decided, you know what, we could do this better. Why don't we just write our own software that was more of a badge focused approach to the industry. And so as a result, I mean, like we still do sell direct in a few states where we were an integrator for years. I mean, like that was how our business grew and started. And way before we even had channel partners or a software product to support for that matter. So naturally, that's where our heaviest presence of customers is. But I think that from a competitive landscape, it's difficult for me. Our on-prem product is more than just photo ID. It's photo ID, access control, and visitor management. And so there's companies who do each of those things independently, like one of those. And then that would mean that there's hundreds of competitors on the badging side. There's competitors on the access side, on the visitor management side. Now, when it comes to our cloud badging offering, what's nice about that is there's not a ton of cloud badging offerings out there right now. And there's not a lot of great badging platforms that really can get data, like your credential data, and seamlessly share it with other applications that need it. And that's what customers want. And that's what I'm excited about is like, they just want to know their stuff's going to work. And then like when they want to buy an access control system, whatever one it is that they choose that they want to buy, they want to know that their badge data gets to that access control system and it works accordingly. And when a card shouldn't be working anymore, it gets turned off. And then they want to know the same thing's going to happen on their attendance tracking system and in their time and attendance and on their bus tracking and like all these other things. And the nice thing is like, because we care about the badge, like we help facilitate that. And then we let the other guys do their thing. Like let the access control guys do their thing in access control. Sell whatever product you want there. Let the, time and attendance system do their thing. We'll just share the data. And there's certainly competitors and other products out there, but not a lot in the cloud right now, just a few, and not a lot that are really kind of focused on that badge first, be the hub, share data seamlessly that we're really focused in on.
So I would imagine you probably partner with some of the big access control players, or at least you see a lot of the big access control players when you install BadgePass, the Linnells or the Open Options, the Acres. Is that, I imagine?
This is a big goal of ours for this year. So, and a lot of this is like, as our cloud product has evolved and gotten to the point where I feel confident that it's badass and should be everywhere and is that central hub that we wanted it to be from a functionality perspective. That's a big initiative of ours this year, is partnering with those access control manufacturers and being their badging platform. Because to be frank, most of them don't really want to deal with it that much and don't want to continue to pour development resources into building a better badging platform. They'd rather focus on winning on the access control side, and I'd rather focus on the badge. So I think it can be a great partnership, and I'm looking forward to hopefully fostering some of those relationships this year.
Well, I don't know if you know my dad, but my dad's been in the access control side for over 20 years. His name is Scott May. He's worked for Open Options and RS2, a lot of the Acre brands. But he works for a company called Hartman now, which is out of Canada. And they hired him to put their footprint more in North America. And so I would love to make an introduction for you to meet my father and his team, because I think you're right. I think that is a smart play to be the central hub for these ACS providers, because my dad's obviously is promoting his cloud offering with Hartman, and so why not have a cloud offering with BadgePass? So if you don't mind, I'm happy to make that introduction.
I would love it, of course. Who would say no to that?
Yeah. That's what I figured. So I'll be happy to do that, Lindsay, because I've enjoyed our conversation this far. But final two questions, and first question is really easy. The second question is probably even easier, but I'll hit on that last question in a second. Goals for 2025, Lindsay. You mentioned, obviously want to get deeper with partnerships. Obviously, higher ed and education is important, but any kind of other professional goals or personal goals that you were working on as a CEO of the company for 2025?
Sure. So I think we've got two primary goals. Number one is to grow our channel partner community. And so we've really been doing a great job of, kind of expanding our footprint. There's certain pockets of the country where BadgePass is very underrepresented, or we have no channel partners at all. And that doesn't sit well with me. I feel like we must be everywhere. And I want good channel partners to help us do that. And I think that's the best go-to-market strategy for us. So that's our number one focus. Our sales team is really focused on growing channel partners. So if there are any that would like to be one, we're happy to talk to you. So that's our number one goal. But the other one is like, when we go into 2026, what I'd like to feel like is we've made some real heavy groundwork on people thinking of us as the badging people. And I think we've started that, but I feel like sometimes it's more like people think of me as the badge girl, just because I talk about badging so much. But I really want people thinking about our product as the hub for badging. And I want to see it being utilized by tons of places just to better issue and manage credentials, where we're going into next year. And instead of us like explaining what BadgePass is a lot, especially at security industry conferences, people are like, oh yeah, the badging people, like, how are y'all? Good to see you. And so those are two big initiatives. One's easy to measure. One's a little bit more difficult.
No, I love it. I mean, it's very simple, and I think you're gonna hit that goal. I guess what I would want to do as well, another introduction. I don't know if you guys are connected with any partners in Oklahoma. I'm sure you've got partners maybe in Oklahoma, but since I played a couple of years there playing ball and went to school there, there's an integrator that I've worked with for years upon years on every single manufacturer I've been a part of, and they've just been my number one partner the whole time. It's a company called Orion Security. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them or not, but Sean Crane is the CEO. He's a personal friend of mine, also an Oklahoma State alum. So there's a connection that I have
There you go.
there. But they're heavy like Genetech and Milestone, and I want to say Linnell and some other stuff. But I think that'd be a great at least introduction as well, if you don't mind, making me introduce you to Sean and the team.
No, I would love it. We actually have a great customer base in Oklahoma as well, on the badging side. So I think that could be a good marriage.
There we go. All right, Lindsay, the last and final question. It's the hardest question you'll ever have to answer ever from Taylor May on SVIP. But 60-second hot seat, why BadgePass? It's such an easy question for you as a sales leader and now the CEO of the company. But why BadgePass, Lindsay? Tell me.
To be totally transparent, I think that's easy. Nobody knows badging better than us. I don't think anybody does it better than us. And quite frankly, nobody cares as much as us. You'll never find a team as passionate about the product having success or our partners having success. And that, to me, drives all of it, is the relationship and the passion behind the brand. And it's what's going to help us win in the long run.
Boom. Love it. Mic drop again. Nothing but the truth, my listeners. Lindsay, if more people want to learn more about BadgePass, what is the best place to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course, you can check out our website. We're very active on LinkedIn. I personally am very active on LinkedIn as well. So don't hesitate to reach out or connect with me. I love to make new friends in the industry. So that's how you can find us.
Awesome, Lindsay. Well, I genuinely appreciate you spending some time with me. There's always an open door if you ever want to be back on an episode. Your partners, your customers. Again, I always love welcoming back guests on episodes. So you're always welcome back on Security VIP.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Well, guys and girls, that was Lindsay Martin-Nez, the CEO of BadgePass out of Mississippi. Make sure you guys go connect with Lindsay on LinkedIn, as well as follow the company. They're doing some interesting things. I always like to highlight my guests and promote them as much as possible. If you guys are wanting to learn more about our podcast series, check us out on YouTube, as well as our website at svip.news. Connect with us on LinkedIn at SVIP. And wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, Amazon, Apple, the list goes on. You guys stay safe out there.